The price of Nintendo 3DS handhelds has significantly increased in recent times, and it's left many people wondering why. I mean, if you look at the current prices on eBay, prices have skyrocketed. Some of these special edition models in good condition can fetch north of $500. Even GameStop recently was offering larger trade-in credit for some new Nintendo 3DS models. But why is this the case? Nintendo stopped producing 3DS systems in 2020, and the Nintendo Switch was their only focus. Of course, the short answer is supply and demand. More people want to buy used 3DS systems now than ever before, and they're paying a premium for ones in good condition. And I think when we break it down, there's a few reasons for this. Of course, these are just my opinions, and you may have your own, and please let me hear your takes in the comments below like always. But the first thing I want to say is that the 3DS has an extensive, and I do mean a massive library of games at its disposal. There was an official count of something like over 1,800 DS and over 1,300 3DS titles, combining this at over 3,000 games available that you can play on your 3DS. But that's only really scratching the surface, because adding the Virtual Console would bring in an extra 200 or so titles. This is before we even talk about hacking the system and adding things like emulators and ROMs to the device. The 3DS represents exceptional value, and it's still a very versatile handheld. People are looking at the 3DS to provide a portable gaming experience that the Switch simply doesn't offer. You can't play any DS or 3DS games on the Switch. There are of course rumors that it will be added to NSO, but even if this is true, in order to experience them, you'll need a dual screen. And let's just say Nintendo provides an official second screen add-on for the Switch. It won't be cheap. Just to play DS or 3DS games that a dedicated 3DS will do right out of the box with no messing about. And the games themselves are excellent. Some brilliant games are available here. My picks are A Link Between Worlds, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, and of course Mario Kart 7. And that's not even bringing in the incredible library of DS titles to the mix. Simply put, a Nintendo 3DS still offers a unique handheld experience in 2026 that Nintendo has no answer for. And some of you might be wondering, wouldn't it just be easier to emulate these games on an Android device such as the AYN Thor and my recent video of the AYN Odin 3? Both of these devices will have impressive 3DS emulation with Azuha, and I would agree with that, but the stark difference here between those that prefer emulation versus real hardware is that I think people that want a 3DS may not be as interested in emulation, or perhaps shy away from it as it does require configuration and tweaking. And of course, emulation isn't perfect. I love 3DS emulation on my Odin 3, but there's always going to be that occasional stutter, hitching, and compatibility issue. And I think the two use cases are completely separate. Which brings me to my second point, nostalgia. I think a lot of people that are looking to buy a 3DS in modern times were younger teenagers perhaps that are now looking to repurchase one for nostalgic reasons, and now because they have disposable income, it is something that is attainable to them. Whereas in the past, perhaps it wasn't attainable to get the games that you wanted, or maybe you weren't able to even get a system, or you had a hand-me-down system. Now it's possible to just go out and buy a 3DS, and I think the demand for that has increased. But I also think it's fair to say that the 3DS, now that it has transitioned away from being a current gen system that is no longer available, it is now considered a vintage collectible or a vintage console. And this by itself tends to drive up the value. The 3DS does have a pretty substantial collector's edition type library where there's different various collector's editions of the 3DS that you can buy, with some models being highly desirable for collectors. So we have good games, a portable handheld, and something that doesn't require a Nintendo account to use. But let's be real and talk about the elephant in the room. The 3DS is a notoriously easy system to hack, and the payoff for hacking your 3DS is massive. And I can't begin to tell you all the things you can do with a hacked 3DS, but I will give you some highlights. For starters, the 3DS is a region-locked handheld, but it's trivial to turn any 3DS into a system that plays region-free games. And this is very useful, as one of the things you can do if you are looking for a used 3DS on the market, or a used Nintendo 2DS or new 3DS, is to buy one from Japan, which is known as the 3DS LL model. Out of the box, it won't support any North American games, but by modding the system, you remove the region limitations from the hardware, completely bypassing any region restrictions and opening up an entire library of games. Many region-specific ones only ever released in Japan can now be played on any modded 3DS. Which leads me to talk about game preservation. The closure of the 3DS eShop meant that something like 600 digital-only titles were lost when the eShop closed down, simply becoming unattainable. If you were someone who missed out on games such as Pushmo or many of the M2 Sega classics like 3D Outrun, you were simply out of luck. There would be no way to ever play these games again. Now, if you were someone who was fortunate enough to purchase these games and tie them to your account, you're in luck. You can still re-download these games at any time, assuming that the 3DS servers are still up and running for you to do so, which, as of the making of this video, is still a thing, and I don't expect that to go down anytime soon. But if you got to the ecosystem too late and missed out on some of these amazing digital-only 3DS titles, then you're simply out of luck. However, with any modded 2DS or 3DS, there are ways for you to download and install these games. Now, with the closure of the 3DS eShop also meant that the multiplayer services for games went down. The 3DS used the Nintendo Network for online gaming, and it was really great. Of course, Mario Kart 7 was far and away the most popular game on the service, but other titles including Mario Maker and Kid Icarus Uprising could also be enjoyed online. And this of course all went away with the closure of the Nintendo 3DS eShop. But once again, with access to a hacked Nintendo 3DS, you can use something like Pretendo, which is an open source Nintendo Network replacement that builds the custom servers for the 3DS and the Wii U, I might add, to preserve the online functionality of those consoles, which allows us to play games like Mario Kart 7 to their fullest capacity. Now, last year I ended up covering the last days of the Nintendo 3DS eShop, and I also talked about Pretendo, and at the time it was pretty much in beta status. There was definitely some teething problems with the particular service. But what I really love about Pretendo is that once it's installed, it is absolutely seamless. It's a smooth transition to online gaming, and there's nothing else you need to do. I turned on this Nintendo 3DS after about a year of me not using it, and I was thinking maybe I'd have to update some files, or maybe Pretendo needed some types of update. But as you can see, I loaded straight into Mario Kart 7 and connected online and got into a match without any fuss whatsoever. Once Pretendo is set up and installed and running on your 3DS, you'll never have to mess with it again, and this is something that I really love. I love the ease of convenience, the ease of use, and just the seamless way you can get into matches and start to play. Of course, Mario Kart 7 is not the only game. Mario Maker is another game that is supported by Pretendo, and of course Kid Icarus Uprising. There are some other games that you can use on the 3DS, including the Friends application, but just having the ability to play games online and preserving the online experience that you have on the Nintendo 3DS is something that you simply can't put a price on. It really just rounds out the reasons for owning a 3DS in 2026. Another useful feature of a hacked 3DS is to back up your game cartridges onto SD card. Effectively, you're just dumping the ROMs onto your SD card, which means that you can store the originals away for safekeeping. This is very useful, of course, if you are someone that is a collector. You can also install various home menu customizations. You can have custom themes. You can back up your save files and keep the progress of all your save games safe and backed up. But the other thing that I really wanted to mention was emulation. Now, the 3DS can run emulators for various old consoles and home computers. Now, the sweet spot for me is Super NES, Sega Genesis, and Game Boy Advance games. Now, there is some more powerful emulators that try to emulate the N64 and PlayStation 1. You would need a new Nintendo 3DS for these, and even in this scenario, your mileage may vary. I personally wouldn't be using a 3DS to run PlayStation games, but some people do, and they seem to enjoy it. I don't think it's really the right type of hardware for PlayStation 1. So I'm going to recommend systems such as the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, and of course, the Nintendo Virtual Boy with Red Viper. Now, Red Viper is one of the best reasons to install an emulator on your 3DS. It gives you the entire library of Virtual Boy games, which isn't very much, but it really allows you to enjoy Virtual Boy games with the 3D mode on the 3DS. And I gotta say, it's obviously not a Virtual Boy, but it really just brings in the unique and interesting parts of the Virtual Boy library, and it makes it available on the 3DS. And the overall experience is excellent. The emulation is of a high quality, and it's something that I'm personally getting my education on some of these Virtual Boy games. Now, I am familiar with some of the Virtual Boy library, but I haven't seen everything that is available on the Virtual Boy. So this is an incredible emulator to run on the 3DS. And one of the reasons why I would say you want to hack your 3DS is to run the Red Viper emulator. It's simply incredible. So for me, it's really no surprise that there is so much demand for a 3DS in 2026 and why people are spending a premium price to secure a good quality one. There is simply so much you can do with a 3DS, and being able to get into this ecosystem without any barriers of entry, no weird DRM or no weird issues, just makes it so desirable for a lot of people to really relive those nostalgia moments of owning a 3DS back in the day, and just being able to beef your system up, get it modded, and install so many really cool applications, emulators, and various other tools, and really just extract the very best of the 3DS scene. I will add to that, however, that I don't think it's personally worth the money to spend like $400 on a new Nintendo 3DS, but I definitely see the reasons why people are paying a premium for one. I think if you are on the lookout for a new Nintendo 3DS, I would just be patient. Eventually something will come along that does suit your budget more, but this is the world that we live in 2026. Nothing is getting cheaper these days. Everything is getting more expensive. But you could do a lot worse than a used 3DS in 2026. It's still an incredible system and one that I absolutely love. But we are going to leave it here for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.